From the Studio 13 Studios in Splendora, Texas.
Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to Hank's Think Tank. We're in it again. It's political season. I dig these interviews. They're always fun. I learn stuff. And today, I've got a great guest in here. This is Kristen Plaisance. She is a candidate for Texas House District 3. Good morning. How's it going?
Good morning.
Doing all right today?
I'm doing great.
Fantastic. So, why this seat? Why District 3?
So I live in District 3.
Okay.
And I'm really running because I have this prayer I've been saying since the fiasco of 2020. When I saw how much trouble we were in, how our rights were being just ignored and our liberties were being trampled, I started saying this prayer to God, that he would tear down, that he would either redeem or tear down anyone who was evil, wicked, corrupt, bribed, blackmailed, coerced, manipulated, and especially those who are the master manipulators of the evil plots against the people, because that is what this is. These are evil plots against the people. And that he would rise up his good people to take every position of leadership, power, influence, trust, and representation. And many times when saying this prayer, I would hear, why not you? Why not you?
And that's powerful.
It is. And,
yeah.
It's
like a reverse rapture,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I would try the Moses thing. Oh, God, not me. I don't speak good. It can't be me. Surely there's somebody better that you could send than me. But I feel God has given me knowledge and wisdom and information about how our government was supposed to function and how far we have strayed from that. And I feel like God has called me to this position. And so that's why I'm running. When God calls you to do something, there really is one answer. Here I am, Lord, send me.
Yeah, there you go. You can't say no to that. I understand that. That's for sure. So how many candidates are in this race so far?
As of right now, I am the only one that has announced that I'm running. Okay. So I don't know if I will have an opponent. I would imagine they are going to find someone to put against me just because of my beliefs and what I hope to accomplish in this office. So I think they will try to find some more establishment type candidate that does not have the knowledge base that I have, that
I get it. Yeah.
They can run against me.
So who holds position 3 now?
Position 3 right now is held by Cecil Bell.
Cecil Bell. Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. All right. And I know that you and I had a conversation out in the green room a little bit about voter integrity and election integrity. I'd like to talk about that just a little bit because I do think that it's a hot topic these days. It's really important. So where do you stand on election integrity, and what would you change to make things true and the way they were intended to be, as you said just a minute ago?
So I have spent 5 years investigating elections in the state of Texas. When I started this, I fully expected to find that the good old boys in Texas were doing everything right. Maybe there were things here and there that needed to be tweaked, but everything was great in Texas. Instead, what I found is that Texas elections are not run by the rule of law. They are run by rampant lawlessness at the highest levels of government. And I have found, unfortunately, through my research, that the Texas Secretary of State's office is the largest violator of election law in the state. They don't just violate the law, they encourage our local officials to violate the law too, which puts our local officials in a really difficult place because they're required by law to listen to the directives from the Secretary of State's office, even if they know those directives are unlawful. And so what I have found is that the certification processes for our voting systems, the voting systems are not secure, and they violate multiple provisions of Texas law, and those laws are required in order for the systems to be used in Texas. So the systems that are currently being used in Texas are not lawful. They don't follow the law. But the biggest issue we have is that there is no penalty in the law if you violate it. So you can violate the law with total immunity because there is no provision that says if you violate this law, it's a misdemeanor or felony.
Really? I didn't know that.
No, the majority of election code has no penalties for anyone in power. So if you remember the Harris County election recently, the Papergate, where a person working in the election department didn't order enough paper, only particularly for areas that are known to be Republican. Well, they had to file charges against him for completely unrelated matters because there was no way to hold him accountable for what he did under the Texas election code.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what can we do to fix it?
So one of the main issues that I will try to, one of the main pieces of legislation that I will try to pass is that there are penalties, especially for those in power who violate election law. If I vote my grandmother's ballot, I have disenfranchised one voter, and I should be held accountable for that. But if you do not make sure that a voting system is secure and that it follows all of the provisions of Texas law to be used in Texas, you could disenfranchise millions of Texas voters, and there's no penalty for that. It's wrong.
It's just nuts.
It is
It really
nuts.
is. I didn't know there were no penalties. I thought every law came with it a penalty of some sort.
No.
So, wow. Okay. Have you looked into blockchain technology? Do you think that would be something that could fix it?
I don't see how anything electronic could ever be 100% fail-safe.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about blockchain. I've never quite
complicated.
been able to understand how that works. And the more complicated something is, the easier it is to hide vulnerabilities and to hide corruption.
Yeah.
But if someone could explain it to me and help me understand it better, I'm always open to learning new things.
Okay. Yeah. Blockchain's pretty tough. I've tried to get a grip on it myself, and it's hard to wrap your head around.
Yes. There are ways to make sure that the system operates safely and effectively. We're just not doing those things.
Yeah, I think it used to at one point, didn't it? I mean, it felt like it. It always felt like it did when I was a kid. I always thought that, it was secure and it worked out well and there wasn't a whole lot of questions.
Yeah.
I think it's around 16 that most of the questions started to come about.
Well,
It seems that way.
I
Anyway.
think that is when all of the questions started to arise because, of course, after the 2016 election, you had a lot of Democrats coming out and saying that they thought the election was rigged and that it was rigged through the electronic voting systems. They have a case in Georgia called Curling versus Kemp. And it was a group of Democrats that came forward with evidence that there was something wrong with the voting systems. And you had the Halderman report in that case that was an affidavit signed by, I think it's Eric Halderman. But he kind of outlined a lot of the vulnerabilities in the systems. But that is not when it started. It literally started from the beginning in 2005 when these, do you remember the hanging Chads scandal?
Yeah. Listen,
So, yes, the hanging
still
Chads.
just makes me laugh too. So
Yes, the hanging Chad scandal got us the HAVA Act, the Help America Vote Act.
Okay.
And in the HAVA Act, the federal government coerced the counties and the states to go to complete and total electronic voting. And I believe, based on evidence that I have seen, that the hanging Chads fiasco was a psychological operation to bring in these electronic voting systems to make it easier for them to control the election outcomes.
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
I mean, it's kind of hard to disagree with.
Yes.
When there's money involved. And the people who create the voting machines, that's a big, big, big operation. There's a lot of dollars there.
Correct.
So, that's too bad.
Yes.
So other than voting and other than being a champion for our election system, what other types of legislation are you thinking about trying to present and get passed? Anything big?
Well, there are so many things that need to be.
Taxes.
Yes. Property taxes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that'd be awesome. Yeah.
We need to do something about our property taxes. You cannot, you can't keep forcing people out of their homes. Eventually, they're not going to have any place left to go. And even if you rent, the increases in property taxes are going to raise their rents and make it unaffordable for low-income people. And that is kind of what we're doing right now. We are pricing tons of people out of the market because they cannot afford their taxes. That is just wrong. We have property rights. We have the right to property. It is outlined in our Constitution. And it's hard to say, okay, well, property taxes are unconstitutional because they're actually in the Constitution. Mm-hmm. But, you cannot have where you're forcing people out of their home. The homestead exemption was supposed to be able to make sure that people were not priced out of their homes. And the homestead exemptions have not kept up with inflation and the true value of homes in Texas. So you have people that are being priced out of their homes. And it also allows, so when you go into a lower, not any income area, but you go into an area where, say, the neighborhood's been there for a while and a developer wants to purchase that area to develop something new, shopping centers, new neighborhoods, whatever they want to do. Well, they start looking at that, and what happens is the values of those homes start to increase and increase and increase. And so then it prices the people out of the market, and then the developers go in and they buy those properties. And it just continues to raise the value until they've been able to purchase everyone out. So the people who are the lowest income people who can't afford the higher taxes, they get picked off first, whereas wealthier people who can afford to pay the taxes, they get bought out last. They get the higher values on the property. Sure. So it just disenfranchises lower income people, the very people as the government we should be trying to protect. Well, we should be protecting all people and their property rights, but
agreed. So what do you think would be an alternate to property taxes?
So I like Texas Public Policy Foundation's idea that you kind of remove the school district M&O taxes, that's the maintenance and operations taxes, that you go away from property tax for that. And they believe that you could buy down those school district M&O property taxes just with state surpluses. Now, some people disagree with that, but I think there are also other ways that you could eliminate it without having to increase the sales tax. And that would be like eliminating special emoluments in the tax code. There are tons of...
What are special emoluments?
So Article 1, Section 3 of the Texas Constitution declares that all people have all rights and that there cannot be any special privileges or special exceptions for any man or group of men, that all the laws must apply equally.
Okay, that makes sense.
So special emoluments are when the government says, okay, well, we have this property tax, but this little group here doesn't have to pay it. And this little group here doesn't have to pay it. And it doesn't just happen in sales tax. It happens in property taxes also. Just currently on the constitutional amendments coming up, there are 5 provisions in the property tax code that are all special emoluments to help certain groups of people.
Like 501s and stuff like that? Is
Not necessarily 501s. So in the upcoming constitutional amendments, you have emoluments for small businesses, you have emoluments for the elderly and disabled. Okay. And while my heart wants to help those people. The problem with special emoluments, you think about small businesses, that is a huge voting block. So giving a special provision for small businesses allows our legislature to go in and buy votes in that large voting block. Same for the elderly. Right now we have the baby boomers, and they're the wealthiest generation to ever come through the United States of America.
Right.
And while we don't want low income people or, people on fixed incomes to be priced out of their home, is it any less evil to misplace an elderly person than it is a young struggling family and put them out of their home? Mm-hmm. So these are all special emoluments. And the reason Article 1, Section 3 was put in the Constitution was to prevent the legislature from being able to buy votes by giving special provisions to special people. We all deserve tax breaks. We all deserve to know that we're not going to lose our house because we've been priced out of the market through property taxes. And we all have that right, and we just have to defend that right.
So what kind of opposition do you think there is to property tax alternatives to get us out of this thing?
Well, there's a lot from...
And I know it's complicated because, that's where, the bulk of the general fund comes from. So
yes, taxes are complicated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you want to make sure that you're not hurting people who really need help. But you also want to make sure that the legislature's not buying votes and that they're not giving special provisions to, cronies and lobbyists and things like that. It is a complex situation, and I'm always learning because I believe you should never be rigid in your beliefs on how something should go, because then you're not learning and growing and expanding. I might learn something tomorrow that completely changes my opinion on what I'm about to say. But I believe that I greatly prefer a sales tax over a property tax, just because it is more voluntary, it is less coercive, it gives people more control over how much taxes they pay. It does not force people to pay taxes they cannot afford to pay or have food. So
I think even the psychological aspect of that alone would be a big, big, big move in the right direction.
Yes.
Just because it's not a forced coercive tax. It is voluntary.
Yes. But there's
don't want to pay it?
Yeah.
Don't go shopping.
There's huge opposition to that. They try to say that it negatively impacts for poor families the worst, and we need to make sure that we don't do that. But there are ways to mitigate that by making sure that essential items like food and personal care items, medical items, and
there
things.
could be some balance brought forth on that, I'm sure. That wouldn't be that hard.
Yes.
I just wonder what the numbers say. I wonder if, going with a sales tax increase like that would provide the same amount of funding to the state that property taxes do. And then what do you do with that whole infrastructure that's created to manage property taxes? Tammy McGray, I'm sure, would be against it.
Well, I don't think that you're going to be able to completely eliminate property taxes all at one time. It is going to have to be a gradual thing, which is why I like the Texas Public Policies Foundation's view on getting rid of first the school maintenance and operations property taxes, because that would eliminate 40% fairly quickly.
That's a big chunk.
It's a huge chunk.
Yeah.
And so, as I was saying earlier, they thought that you could do it simply by buying down or just by giving back using the state surplus to offset some of that. But even if, because there are people who believe that's not true, so even if that's not true, there's other things that we could do, like we talked about the special emoluments, getting rid of special emoluments that only benefit certain groups. You'd still have exemptions for things like food, personal items that are necessary, medical expenses, pharmaceutical drugs, and things like that. But we would eliminate a lot of those emoluments. And then the next is decreasing the overburden of the administrative cost on our schools. Since 1990, the cost per student for just administration when you adjust for inflation, has gone from $610 per student to $1,050 per student.
Per semester?
Per year.
Per year?
That'd be
Wow.
per year. Okay. And then
Man, per
the
student.
administrative costs, so the administrative salaries have risen $15,000 in that time frame when adjusted for inflation, but teacher salaries have actually decreased since 1990 when you adjust it for inflation. So we used to only have 250 students per administrator. Now we have 184 students per administrator.
Yeah.
Well, we could just eliminate a lot of that cost. We could raise $2.5 billion just by backing down some of those administrative costs without decreasing the services that we provide to our students. I mean, what's important to note is that in that time frame from 1990 to today, we have done nothing to actually improve the scores of children in our Texas education system.
Right.
So it really has not had a huge impact on the quality of education. I mean, you think right now, our legislature has done such a terrible job of managing our school funds and managing how schools are run that we are actually contemplating using public funds to fund private education. That is just an admittance from the legislature that they are not capable of doing their job, because the Constitution says that in Article 7 that the government, the legislature, shall provide a system of public free schools. It does not say that we are going to fund private schools with public money. Now, the people 100% have the right to do that if that is what they want to do. If the people want school choice, 100%, the people have the right to have that. But it requires a constitutional amendment. We cannot just have our legislature deciding that they're going to change the terms of the contract with the people and just ignore the Constitution. We have too many people ignoring what our Constitution says. We need to have a recurrence to the fundamental principles upon which this nation and this state were founded, and that is that the people are in control of their government. The government is a trust, just like any other trust.
Right.
Everyone serving in government has a fiduciary duty to strictly follow the trust compact, and that is the Constitution's.
It's representative government, and I think a lot of people have forgotten that.
Oh, yes. They
You
have
know,
completely
that's-
forgotten it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yes. Most people don't realize in Article 1, Section 2, this is one of the most clear provisions of the Texas Constitution. It outlines for us that the people hold all political power, not a little bit, not some.
Right.
They hold all political power. The government was founded on our authority, not their own authority, and the government was instituted for our benefit, not for their benefit, and that the people have the right at all times to alter or reform or even abolish our government in whatever manner we think expedient. It doesn't say we can only reform our government through elections. It does not say that we can only reform our government every 2 or 4 years. It says that we have the right to do that at all times. Like, we are the boss. And so when we walk
be.
into someone's office that is a government official, they need to sit up and pay attention. Like, hey, this is our boss. Our boss has just taken time out of their day, out of their time for work, and come into our office to tell us that something is wrong and that we need to fix it.
Right. Yeah. And I know that, well, I'm not going to say I know. I assume that many of the legislative individuals that I've talked to in here don't really see that anymore. And they see that it's their responsibility to ensure to the community that they're making the right choice. You know, and it's kind of a backwards kind of thing. And I've seen that drift for many years. And I'm hoping that eventually someday we'll get back to a true representative government where the representatives understand that they need to answer to us, and that it's us that need to help them make the decisions as well. And it even goes back to just community involvement. A lot of people aren't involved. There's apathy. We discussed a little bit of that earlier.
Yes.
And so it's kind of a catch-22 and a hard situation to be in.
Yes.
And then going back to the schools, and I just wanted to mention this because I wanted to get it out there. My biggest problem with our school system isn't so much administrative and the way that the schools are run as much as it is curriculum. Because I'm a believer that a one-size-fits-all curriculum doesn't work, because I'm living proof of that. And so I'm hoping that someday we'll take a look at what the schools are there for and what their core responsibilities are. And their core responsibility is to turn out kids who are knowledgeable and prepared for life, not can recite this or recite that or gain great scores on a test that we provide to them. I want successful kids that know how to think.
Well, you're right.
Yeah.
You are absolutely right. We want kids that know how to think. But what the Constitution says is the purpose of education. I'm going to read you this because it is so powerful. And we have gotten so far away from this. But Article 7 actually says that a general diffusion of knowledge being essential to the preservation of the liberties and rights of the people. They wanted us to be educated, not just on math and science. They wanted us to be educated on how our government is supposed to function, on what our rights are. You don't see many people, and even in our schools, they talk about the U.S. Constitution, but the majority of our rights and our powers all lie in our state constitutions. Right. Like, we need to be teaching the state constitution to the children, at least by the time they get into high school, so they understand what their rights are, how our government is supposed to function. But they don't teach that because they don't want the people to know.
Well, and it's civic responsibility as well.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's one of the things that I think should be taught in our schools more than anything else. And when you leave school as a senior in high school, you should be a pretty hard critical thinker.
Yes.
And if you're not, something bad happened while you were there.
Yes.
And I meet a lot of kids these days that aren't critical thinkers. They can repeat a lot of stuff, but as far as being able to examine complex situations with an open mind, it's not there a lot of times, and that disappoints me.
Well, it's been done on purpose.
So, yeah.
They want cogs in a wheel. They don't want independent thinkers. They want people who will go in, do their mundane job, leave, go home, be so wrapped up in what's going on social media that they don't know what's happening. One of the things that really just still shocks me over and over again is when I read through the constitutions, when I read through the Federalist Papers, when I read through all of our founding documents, when you know that those documents were purposefully written at an 8th grade level so that the common man could understand their rights, and you read those documents today, and most people who have come out of college with a 4-year degree do not understand those documents.
Right.
I mean, that is how far we have come down as a society from knowing and understanding very complex issues that 8th graders would have understood when this nation was founded.
It's crazy, isn't it? And when you think about it, it's nuts. It really is. And just life has gotten so complex, and there's so much going on, so much attacking you with just volume and velocity.
Yes.
I mean, it's just crazy to even try to compartmentalize all of this and have a spot for it for the average individual to say, okay, wait a minute, before we go any farther, there is a responsibility that I have as a citizen of Texas, as a citizen of the country, and I need to make sure that I adhere to that responsibility because I'm a United States citizen.
Yes.
A lot of people they never even contemplate that. You'd be surprised.
Yes.
And I think that's why our voter turnout is so low.
Yes.
Is because we just need to get back to, hey, it's really not that big of a deal. All you got to do is understand the fundamentals and the basics, and you're off and on your way.
Yes.
So do you have a favorite author, founding father author or something like that? Do you have somebody who you think their writings were the best or their thoughts were the best?
No, I don't. I
No?
love it all. I've always loved history. I think God put that on my heart a long time ago because he knew I was going to need it for my purposes for today. I've always loved history, and I've always loved the law. So I love it all. I mean, I have read almost all of the founding fathers, their letters, their papers they wrote. I've read all 51 of the American constitutions.
It's really interesting to see where their mind was.
Yes.
While all this was being created.
And I've also read a lot of the books that they read that gave birth to the ideas that founded this nation. I love John Locke. John Locke is, you go and read his books, Two Treatises of Government.
Sure.
You see a lot of the foundational principles that ended up in our Constitution in his writings, but there are so many more. I mean, there's tons.
It's all brilliant, isn't it?
It is. It is brilliant.
I wonder if we've lost that brilliance because it just doesn't seem to be as prevalent as it was back then.
I don't think we've lost it. I think it's just been hidden. It's been hidden from us. I never would have known any of this information. And, in one small, tiny way, I thank God for COVID because government does not typically attack our rights in a very outward manner the way they did during COVID. COVID woke up a lot of people. We were like, whoa,
Changed
what
everything.
is happening here? Not just our government destroying our liberties, but you had hospitals, doctors' offices, corporations treating people like they were property.
Yeah, it changed everything.
Oh, it did. It changed everything. And had it not been for that, I think we would have continued on this slow, gradual, like the frog being put in the pot and the fire's just slowly turned up and then it's too late by the time you realize you're being cooked. It's too late to get out of the pot. And I think that is what has been happening. So many of our rights have been subverted and diminished, even just by changing the definitions of words. Like if you want to understand the constitutions, you have to go find an old legal dictionary. You cannot just simply look up what does that word mean today, because if you do, you will give away some of your rights. One of the most popular legal dictionaries is Black's Law Dictionary.
Right.
Okay. And so if you look at the definition of due process of law in the 4th through 1st edition, and I think it might even still be the same in the 5th edition, but eventually it's been changed to remove any reference to what is called the maxims of law or the fundamental principles of law. And a lot of your rights are hidden within the fundamental principles of law and the maxims of law. And if you don't understand what those maxims are, you can easily be tricked out of your rights because that is a key component of due process of law. Today, we think of due process of law as only being the civil rules of procedure or the criminal rules of procedure. And there's some great things in there, but that is not constitutional due process of law. And so if you don't understand and your attorney does not understand that the fundamental principles of law are part of due process, you diminish your rights in court. And people don't understand that. But in the 5th edition of Black's Law, I'm going to read you this because it is so profound. I found this and I was like, wow, this is just absolutely stunning. So in the preface of Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition, it says this: in the period since the 4th edition, most all areas of the law have undergone substantial change and development. The vocabulary of the law has shown corresponding change and growth, particularly in the areas of commercial and constitutional law, civil law, and criminal procedures. It also says that in addition, many common law doctrines, that goes back to your fundamental principles of law, and concepts have been replaced or modified with new statutory rights and remedies. That's your civil rules of procedure, your criminal rules of procedure. So what happens when you change the definitions and change the doctrines? You are actually subverting and diminishing people's rights. You are removing rights from the people, and it tells you right there in the preface of Black's Law Dictionary that it's happening. But most people don't know that exists.
Right. Wow.
It takes a broad diffusion of knowledge. That's where this kind of starts off. People need to know and understand what is really going on, because we have lost a lot of our rights. And until we stand up and understand our rights and fight back, we're not going to get them back.
Hopefully we will get them back someday. Usually that's a kind of a tough and not pleasant thing.
I believe that we will. Yeah. And I believe that we're going to do it peacefully. And it's just going to start by a broad diffusion of knowledge and people understanding their rights and understanding how to fight back. So one of the things that I've found, so this kind of sounds doomy and gloomy, like, oh my gosh, everything's so bad. How do we fix it? Mm-hmm. Well, there are actually people like David Jose, who have found a system of holding government accountable and getting them to return back to the fundamental principles. So one of the things that he pushed for, that I kind of worked with his organization on and helped with this, is that we sent thousands of legal notices. There's 5,000 to 8,000 people in the United States of America that have participated in this. Okay. We sent thousands of legal notices to the Supreme Court about issues that were wrong in our government, how our rights were being subverted and violated through the courts. And after sending those legal notices, you wait 12 months, 18 months. And then the Supreme Court, you watch the Supreme Court fix those issues. Those legal notices got us the Bruin decision, which restored a lot of our Second Amendment rights. Mm-hmm. Those legal notices destroyed the Chevron deference doctrine, which was a 60-year doctrine that had been used to allow the government to place their thumb on the scale of justice. We got the SEC versus Jakarski, I don't know how you say it, Jakarski. Okay. And what they did is stated that these administrative courts that have not been following the Constitution are operating unconstitutionally, that they must uphold constitutional mandates, even if they're just an administrative hearing. You cannot take property in the form of fines and fees from the people without giving them the opportunity to have a trial by jury. And they had been diminishing that. A lot of our courts today are not judicial courts, which are required by due process of law, the original meaning. It must be a judicial process. And they have diminished that into, oh, well, this isn't a real court. This is just an administrative hearing. Well, they're taking property from people without full constitutional due process of law. There have been many more decisions that we have gotten from the U.S. Supreme Court by sending legal notices. And so now we have people that are working to send legal notices at lower levels, to the legislature, to state courts. And eventually, what has happened in the Supreme Court is going to trickle down to the lower courts, and we are going to be able to restore some of those rights.
Okay, cool. Well, Kristen, tell me a little bit about Kristen. Where were you born? So, where'd you grow up? What kind of family did you have?
I was born in Bossier City, Louisiana, which is right by Shreveport.
Awesome.
So born and raised there, lived there all of my childhood, and then moved to South Louisiana when I married my husband, and then stayed there 2 years and ended up in Houston. I've been in Houston, the Houston area, for 23 years now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to Houston.
Yes.
Good to have you here.
I wasn't born and raised in Texas, but I got here as soon as I could.
Yeah.
Texas is home.
Yeah.
I'm fighting for it. If we lose Texas, we're done. There's nowhere else to run.
Yeah, everybody follows Texas. So
yeah.
Texas is
first. And people think that Texas is this massive bastion of liberty. And I guess in some ways we do have more liberty here than we have in other countries, but I don't want more states. I don't want Texas to be seen as, well, it's better than nothing. I don't want to look at, is Texas better than California? Is Texas better than Ohio? Is Texas better than Florida? What I want to look at is, how can Texas be better than Texas? How can we do better?
Right.
That's
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Kids?
Yes, we have 5 children and
5? Wow.
6 grandchildren.
Wow, that's
Yes.
pretty good.
And it's for them.
Yeah.
Everything that I do is to ensure that they can sit in the shade of liberty that I thought we had.
Sure, I understand. Okay. And what'd you do for a living?
So I've been an entrepreneur almost my entire life.
Awesome.
Very little time have I spent actually working for other people. A little bit in my early years, but I've owned businesses. I was a real estate and commercial photographer for 18 years. I've worked for organizations like Choice Hotels International, Best Western Suites, Kindred Hospitals, Fleming Steakhouses. So I've had some really major national accounts that I photographed for.
Yeah, and I like people who take that on for themselves. So I've had a couple of jobs throughout my life, all of which I was fired from, by the way. And I think a lot of that is just due to my beliefs as well. So my entire life, I've basically been self-employed, and I've owned several businesses and done okay. So yeah, it's been that way.
Yeah.
And so have you had any other political careers? Or have you?
So currently
held
I'm
any
a
elected?
precinct chair.
Okay.
And so I do enjoy that position, helping other candidates get elected. I've been on leadership boards for organizations like Texas First, who is an organization that promotes transparent, accountable elections.
Right. Yeah, I'm familiar
And
with Texas
accurate.
First.
And I've worked on in a leadership role for Citizens Defending Freedom.
Okay.
So I've done things like that, but I've never really had the desire to be in politics. Before 2020, I was very not political. I voted like most people. I go there, I cast my ballot, and I thought my civic duty was done. I thought that was all I needed to do.
Sure.
And then after 2020, I just woke up and was like, something is terribly wrong. I thought we had all these rights. People talk so much about Florida and how Florida's in the lead on government. We owned a property in Florida during 2020. And do you know that they tried to block us from going to our own property across the state line in Florida during COVID with a military-style checkpoint?
Really? I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, absolute
COVID was
insanity.
Just a mess.
Yes.
I'm hoping that nothing like that ever happens again, but I think we're destined for it.
I think they pulled back when so many people stood up. So many people said no to what they were trying to do, but I don't think that their aspirations are over. I think they intend to pull back this same play card again and try it again. I would hope that the American people have learned a lot, not just me. There are thousands of people who have woken up, maybe tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, who would not do the same thing this time that they did last time. So
I get it. Yeah.
I hope the reaction would be quicker and more louder. Let's say that.
Okay.
I hope the reaction would be quicker and louder if they try again.
Any fundraisers on the horizon?
So I'm going this weekend to an event that puts grassroots candidates like myself into contact with donors. It's a great event that they're doing.
Okay.
But I don't have any current fundraisers coming up. We need to get that scheduled. I think I've roped my husband into cooking for me for like a great Cajun event. My husband is one of the best Cajun cooks you will ever meet. I will put him up against a 5-star restaurant any day. Yeah. He makes blackened redfish that is better than any restaurant. The best chicken and sausage gumbo. So I'm hoping he's gonna do a cookout for me, and we'll invite a bunch of people and raise some funds. It's difficult for small grassroots candidates, the people who really want to work for the people, it's difficult to raise funds.
Sure.
So if just for your audience out there, if you know candidates that you're like, wow, this person really should win, donate $5, $10. Every little bit adds
helps,
up,
yeah. And
because
campaigns are really expensive now.
Because we're often blacklisted from the big donors because they want the establishment class. They want the lobbyists to be in control. They want the cronyism. And so you often don't have the big money. But then you also don't have to pay campaign consultants and things like that. So you can run on a shoestring budget. We just do a lot of block walking. And let me say this about block walking, because I know it's annoying for people to come knock on your door. But when you get those slick mailers in the mail and you've gotten 4 or 5 of them from the same candidate, ask yourself who's paying for that. It's typically that those candidates are being funded by very big dollars.
I did a video on mailers once, so yeah, I understand.
Yes.
I'm not happy about mailers at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
So support your candidates that will come knock on your door and meet with you and shake your hand and really want to hear what's important to you, because at the end of the day, those are the candidates that really want to restore our nation back to its foundational principles. Those are the candidates we need, and those candidates, you can only vote for them in the primaries. If you have never voted in a primary, if you stay home during the primary, that is why you have to hold your nose and vote in November, because all of your good candidates were eliminated in the primary.
Got weeded out.
So get to the primaries in March and vote.
Okay, sounds good. Average voter guy. Never heard of you before. So do you have a Facebook page? Do you have a website and all that stuff?
I do.
That provides information? Well, let's hear it.
Yes. So if you go to my website at forlibertykristenplaisance.com, and then I have a Facebook page that is just Kristen Plaisance Campaign, I believe is what it is, or Campaign for Kristen Plaisance.
I'll put links in the description for
yes,
that.
That'll be helpful, because I have a different last name. It's hard for people to spell sometimes.
Yeah, it was hard for me to pronounce. So I don't want to try it again. So,
you did great.
Thanks.
You did great.
So is there anything else that you'd like to make sure that the voters know before we end all this?
Please read my website. I wrote every word on my website from my heart. It is truly my principles and my values and why I'm running. I am a very different kind of candidate. I really do want to restore your political power and restore the full power and authority of the Constitution over our government. And there's not a lot of candidates out there who are going to help you do that. I have a wealth of knowledge that God has given me and prepared me for this race. And so I really want to work for you to help you regain your liberty.
Okay. Well, Kristen, I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
So this has been an enlightening conversation. And again, I learn something every time I do one of these. That's why I do them. So one of these days I'll be a smart guy. So it's going to take a while, but we'll get there. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. Kristen Plaisance. And I'm going to leave some links in the description so you can find the website, find the Facebook page and all that. She needs your support. Now, here's the thing. You got to get out and vote. If you don't vote, it's not going to work anymore. We've got to continue to make sure that this system stays intact and we do our part. Our part, as we discussed here, goes a little bit farther than voting, but if I can just get you to the voting booth, I'll be happy with that. And remember, guys, you want to vote for the person who would do the job the way you would do it if you had that job yourself. I'm Hank Vatt. This is Hank's Think Tank, and we're out. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Thanks a lot.